Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And I'm Fahima Mohammad, your relationship expert. And inshallah, we'll be having another discussion around relationships. I look forward to hopefully bringing some more insights and awareness around the challenges that we are facing right now. As you might know, you're probably streaming through Sky, and we have streamers through other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and it's amazing to see comments and questions around the world. And I would love to actually hear some of your voices that will call into the studio as well, which I will receive the call, and hopefully you can do that and join into the conversation and the discussion. We can definitely talk, but you can direct this conversation and actually have some of your questions answered directly by the team here, myself, as well as I would love to introduce my guest. But before I do, I also want to remind you, dear viewers, to please call in, which is the number at the bottom of your screen, 01924231083. I'm really excited to introduce to you Brother Bilal-Ali Hugh. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Bilal. Welcome to Single Muslim Live.
Wa alaikum salam, Sister Fahima. How are you doing? You okay?
I'm fine. How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah. Very, very well. Very well. Very well.
It's such a pleasure.
Forward to this.
Oh, so am I. I've got my pen and pad ready as well, because I know how you speak, and inshallah we'll be taking notes, and hopefully we'll be getting some calls in to please, what we're going to be discussing today is obviously it's around relationships, but the theme is the importance of behavior during courtship, and we will touch on also the importance of language. So these are the things that a lot of people have commented about with regards to finding their other half, and there's a lot of detail into it nowadays as relationships has evolved and people have changed on their outlook. So Brother Bilal, why don't you start us off, because I know you deal with this for many years, and especially even if people come to us with regards to one area, it always ends up with something to do with relationships. So when it comes to the importance of behavior during courtship, how would you start off by the subject? Oh, before you do, I just want to remind the viewers again of the number on your screen, which is 01924231083, to please call in, and you're only going to be charged by the standard network rate via your landline or mobile. So again, Brother Bilal, how would you introduce this topic to our viewers out there watching, eagerly waiting to hear what are the actual answers?
Well, I hope by the end of the program, I hope by the end of the program we'll maybe touch on a few answers. I know that we won't get to all of them because we don't know all of the answers, and we won't have enough time even if we did. But if we could just touch on, maybe there's a kind of I would say like a pre-courtship questionnaire or a pre-courtship conversation that individuals will need to have with themselves, both males and females, men and women, young men, young women, need to have with themselves and ask themselves certain types of questions, like, for example, why do they want to get married at this particular time? What are they hoping to get out of marriage? And what do they feel are their talents? What's special about them that they bring to the table that they can give to a marriage? What's their perception of marriage? So some of these questions they may have to ask themselves before they even venture. I would gently advise or get people to reflect on that before they venture into trying to find a life partner and trying to start their inquiry or their courtship. Start that inquiry with yourself.
It's interesting you say that, because a lot of us don't really think like that. And I hope that the dear viewers out there that are watching, please have a pen and paper ready, because these are important notes to take down. Because a lot of us, don't you agree, Brother Bilal, is that, we're Muslim, it's half our deen, we need to get married. And that's as far as it goes. And then we start looking. And then at the end of the day, it's like we can't find somebody. And that's how I usually hear these conversations. So describe to me a little bit more in detail with regards to why would be asking each one of those questions, and what would that lead to eventually if you ask those questions to yourself first? And how would that actually match you finding the right partner?
Well, you see, what I would say is that the pre-courtship questions that you ask yourself, it will inform you, because half of our journey, use the phrase half, half of our religion, but half of the journey is about, in life in general, is about self-awareness. Because what we don't want to do is put ourselves in situations where we really don't even know ourselves. Now, marriage is a big responsibility on an emotional, psychological, on a spiritual, on an economic, on a number of levels of religious duty, religious obligations that come with marriage. So it does come with many fruits, many, many, many blessings and barakah, but it's a big responsibility. So the reason why we need to have that conversation with ourselves is we know what we're getting ourselves into and what we're bringing into that situation. Because to me, it's interesting that we're going to have a list of 100 questions or 200 questions or recommended questions to ask somebody else. But do we even know the answer to some of those questions about ourselves, and what's really our driving and motivating factor or factors that's influencing us to take this big step?
So you're saying that it's more than just trying to fulfill your faith, because I think within fulfilling your faith is actually digging deep within ourselves. Am I correct?
Indeed.
Okay.
Because
please go ahead.
No, please, Bismillah.
Because I think that when we sometimes not on a journey of self-development, it's very difficult to get lost in translation of looking at the other. I find that with my clients personally, when they come for coaching, it is normally about an external sort of situation. So what would be the drive for an individual to look within, to make them feel that it has to be them first to be in a particular way, knowing that even in life, we do change over time through circumstances, experiences, whatever it may be. So what are the core things, like you mentioned before, but what are the core things, like, for example, the values, maybe that could be it, I don't know, from your perspective, what could you sort of, divulge in deeper with regards to somebody asking these questions? Because again, I've done these shows for a while and I still get the same, majority of the time, the same comments. And it is really about just looking for the other person and trying to find the other person and putting down sort of notes as to what the other person should be, which is not a bad thing. But again, when there's complaints about not finding that other person, then obviously we need to take a step back and think, what are we not doing and what can we improve on? And I think that's where this question as to looking within comes in, into really importance. Again, before you answer, I just want to quickly remind the viewers, you are watching live, Single Muslim Live, and you can call in live with your questions or comments. We have Brother Bilal here and myself to answer anything and any of your queries, which is a really special opportunity, which you don't normally get. So please do call in and we'll be, really happy to answer anything that you would like to ask us right now. So Brother Bilal, again, as I was saying, what would be the core reasons beyond faith that we need to ask ourselves, and why?
I would say they're practical reasons, right? So we're looking to embark on a journey with another person. We have a list of things that may be our preferences. They may be non-negotiables. We're going to have a hierarchy of things that we require, that we desire in a spouse, in a potential spouse. However, are we clear where that's coming from? Is that just an emotional? Is it because it's a feel-good factor? Because there's many things that we might think, they feel good, they seem good, they make us feel warm and fuzzy inside. But if we're not clear about who we are and what we're really looking for and what are some of our motivations, I'm wondering, how do we deal with things like conflict, for example? Because that's an inevitability. There's a level of tension or conflict or disagreement, for example. So how do we kind of find the person that is compatible for us if we know what we're looking for, but we don't know what we're looking at when we look at ourselves? Is this person really compatible, or is it just, I find this something that I like or desirable, or these are some ideas that I may have from popular culture, or where have I got these ideas about a mate and my preferences? And when I ask these questions, or I'm lending the idea of asking these questions, they're not judgmental questions to say anybody has bad ideas, but it's to really flush them out, to really bring them to the surface, to kind of understand what's going on an unconscious level and bringing that in our more everyday awareness, understanding our drive.
Yeah, I want to ask you loads of questions about what you just said, but I do think we have a caller online. Assalamu alaikum. Sister, you're live on British Muslim TV. Welcome.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Sister, I'm in London visiting my sister, and I've got my two nieces. I just wanted to say, is that Bilal from the Al-Bayt channel?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes, it
I
is.
remember him. Because I remember Sister Rebecca as well.
Yes,
I love that
yes.
channel. I just want to phone to say Assalamu alaikum and hello, really. And Medina, you want to say hello? How come my little niece? Say hello.
Good to hear from you. Always a pleasure. Always
She's
a
a bit
pleasure.
shy. I'm enjoying myself in London, but you know what? I think I brought the weather with me because it's been raining. The only nicest weather we had was 30. I think it was 31 degrees, but it was hotter than Ibiza.
Yes, it does change.
I want to also say, see, I have been with my partner because I called in last time, but I've not got married. I know, like, it's a sin, but I've asked for forgiveness. But see, if I love someone and I've been with them for 20 years, and I do want to marry them, would God forgive you if you ask sincerely? Is it good to get married in Islam? What should I do? Because I know there's a lot of young people nowadays, and they're not married. Be honest, sister, we live in the West and UK. Not everyone's living 100% Islamic. We try our best, but we want to be loved by Allah, and we want to be forgiven. But don't you think, as Muslims, we tend to keep our sins to ourselves? But sometimes we've got to share it in some ways to say to us, we live in the West, how do we get support as a born Muslim? Because even us, we're not all perfect and we're not all holy. Sometimes we make mistakes, but how do we sort ourselves out? How do we get into the right way? Because in my time, my mum and dad didn't accept it because I went to social care. But you know what I mean? But I'm still with my partner, but it's not like I'm doing anything wrong. I know Hajj is coming and all that, but what should I do? Should I get married? I don't know.
Thank you so much. I do remember you from before.
Bye.
No problem. Thank you so much for your call, sister. And obviously, Bilal is quite famous here with our viewers from all over. Yes. In answer to your question first, I'd like to add that this is a very serious show with regards to encouraging people to marry, because this is part of our faith. As much as we want to, understand our faith, SingleMuslim.com is a serious platform for individuals to get together to actually meet and actually get to know each other for a serious reason. And that's really why I'm really happy to actually represent this. As for your personal situation, I would advise you to ask the alim, but for general sort of purposes, yes, Islam has very clear guidelines and boundaries on a general note to say that regardless of living anywhere, it is actually applicable to practice your religion with regards to live through the Islamic sort of boundaries and guidelines. But again, this is a show for single Muslim. We are not qualified as Islamic jurisprudence teachers. I do advise you that we do have another show, which is Ask the Alim on British Muslim TV, and your question would be probably better suited Islamically for your personal circumstance. But for relationship experts, as Bilal and myself, Brother Bilal and myself, do sort of respond to individuals with regards to questions around just relationships and the challenges of relationships. Again, what was your thoughts on that, Brother Bilal?
Alhamdulillah. It's nice to hear from the sister. Nice to know that she's still out there. I think you've kind of covered it, though, essentially, Fahima, in a sense where we're not jurists. That's not our speciality. The mind, emotion, psychology, psychotherapy. I mean, that's what we do. But I would just say, essentially, as a Muslim, God is all forgiving. And when we change our behavior and turn a new page, he's forgiving. So I would really encourage the sister to get some consultation from an alim, but I encourage her, if she's met somebody that she has feelings for, that marriage should be really the main direction that they should be heading, as soon as is practical or as possible.
But this is the reality of the community. So nobody's perfect. So this is why we have this show, so that we can actually open up those mindsets with regards to all their struggles that they're going through right now, knowing that they're not alone, and especially in our Muslim community where people don't necessarily seek the help and the advice, or not even knowing that there is. And even professionals like ourselves are not necessarily on a platform speaking like this. And this is one of the first, especially, being sponsored by sponsored by SingleMuslim.com on British Muslim TV has now, taken into consideration the actual challenges that individuals are facing out there as single Muslims. And that's why the show is here to address this. And that's why it's really special and it's different. And it's really amazing to have qualified, trained specialist professionals to come on here to speak. So you are getting some really valuable information. And again, if you do want to call in, it's 01924231083. I have lots of questions for you myself. So a lot of people have heard from me, but this is why you're here today, because I want to get the most out of your mindset right now. So when it comes to behavior during courtship, let's get straight to it. A lot of us, maybe not are taught and have those skills, whether it's, academically from school or even in your homes. What are the behaviors that, during courtship that we need to sort of recognize and maybe uphold?
Okay, so again, in terms of Islamically, there's certain specific jurisprudential rulings, which I would always encourage people to be clear if they have any gray areas or they're doubtful about, to sort of make that a starting point about what is halal. How do you make contact? How do you even meet somebody? Is it through permissible means? But even if, just they say, for example, we're living in a real world where somebody may have met two Muslims may have met in not the perfect circumstances, because we're not perfect individuals. However, it doesn't mean all is lost. It means that we should still, I would encourage to adopt certain behaviorism, certain mannerisms, certain ways, certain akhlaq in terms of how we our interactions and how two coming together are developing a relationship. This going towards marriage. So one of the things I would always encourage people is to try their best not to be alone, as in like in a private space. I mean, if you maybe some professional setting and it's a public place, but you may be alone, it's different. There's a context, but definitely try to not be alone with this person and monitor your interactions. Are you interacting with this person because you're trying to find out information that will help you make a decision and getting to know each other, or is it because you're starting to enjoy their interactions and it's for the pleasure? Because you have to separate the two, because one is not really helpful and it can be a bit of a dangerous area. So I'd say that the public sphere is one thing that will help you in terms of your behavior, mannerisms, and how you conduct yourself. Meet in public, discuss in public, have the conversations in public as much as possible.
Very good. I love that. We do have another caller online. Assalamu alaikum. You're live on Single Muslim live call-in on British Muslim TV. What would you like to say?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just a quick one, really. I just want to say, thank you for your hard work, what you're doing in Single Muslim, believe it or not. My marriage has been successful. I've been married for over 6 years now. I've got 2 kids now, 1 boy and 1 girl. By the will of Allah, I'll be honest with you, with that Single Muslim, the app you guys got, which I downloaded, and, it's actually helped me. That's my success story. And, it's just, I couldn't believe it myself, It's all halal, alhamdulillah. I met a few sisters before, I took my mum and dad to the property, obviously, and obviously a few of them wasn't right for me, which I decided no. But obviously, alhamdulillah, by will of Allah, one of the sisters which I agreed to get married to, and, it's blessed, isn't it? So I just want to thank you guys for everything you're doing. You're doing an amazing job. I mean, everything's not perfect in life, but, anything is possible.
Oh, thank you so much for this call. It's so touching and enlightening, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you call in and share that information. Really, really appreciate that. And inshallah, many, many more happy years and blessed, success for you and your entire family. Thank you so much. And this is what it's all about, really. This is the reality. As much as there are, struggles, amongst that, we have to always understand that we hear those negative stories, like I and Brother Bilal ourselves, we're helping people with struggles all the time, but we don't forget that there are success stories there, and we should really remember that, and that's what we need to strive towards, and it is possible. And again, thank you so much, brother, for calling in with that comment.
And another one, sister, a lot of us don't understand, obviously our parents try arranged marriage, it doesn't work. Obviously for me, I didn't want to arrange marriage, so I wanted to marry somebody in the UK. So, parents will try arranged marriage. I'll say to my dad, let me try myself. It's all halal way. You see it? That's fine. Yeah. You find me. You bring the CV. You send a message. Then you find your own partner. I'm from Bangladesh. So I found somebody in UK from Bangladesh. We send messages and we're compatible. Alhamdulillah, we meet up with family halal. And, your parents are happy and everyone's happy. So, anything's possible, guys. It has to be strict arranged marriage. You just got to be honest with your parents and sit down and say, look, Dad, a single Muslim app out down there, and we can just have a honest conversation and take it from there.
So what's your, quickly, your opinion on the courtship, and how did you go about it? Because obviously, you are an amazing success story. Is there something that you may like to share so that the other viewers could follow?
I mean, best, to be honest, in a marriage, to be happy, you have to be able to be honest with each other, everyone's going through, different stages of life, there's always going to be ups and downs. Nothing is perfect, you just got to be honest with each other, and take one step at a time, and that's it. It's like a journey. It's like being a friend, when you go to college and you meet a friend, you get to know them, nothing in life is perfect. And you build that relationship, and that's it. And everything becomes success.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to hear you speak. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we end the call?
I just want to say, everyone, really, Single Muslim is doing a good job. It's nothing negative, guys. It's all down to you guys. How you want to make your marriage work, it's all down to you. And, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, by Allah's will, you'll find the right person. Everybody has a person, his destiny in life.
Thank you so much. Again, appreciate the call. That's just really highlighted something for me as well. It just goes to show that we do blame sometimes when things don't work out for us as, the external as the problem. But like the brother said, it's an amazing platform. Obviously, it has, everything has its challenges, but it's not necessarily, we have to look, externally. It's within. So this is why we're actually here, to raise these sort of like issues so that we can actually, put ourselves in situations which is, performing on that optimal level of ourselves so that we can get those, positive results and the outcomes that we desire. So again, Brother Bilal, as you were talking before the caller, we was talking about, the way in which, the behaviors matter. I know you sort of like brushed over the importance of it in, Islamic way. Could you give me an example? I mean, you did mention about not being alone. So what would be the alternatives? Because again, a lot of us, if we are, for example, chatting online, there isn't much sometimes we may consider to keep ourselves on that line. So what would be some of the behaviors, like because a lot of people find that maybe it is a safe space because actually we are not meeting face to face. So that's one way. But even if you're not meeting face to face, what are the other behaviors and things, apart from even just the Islamic factor, but also just generally as to how we, talk, the language, the kind of things that we should ask now, obviously, how much do we say about ourselves? How much do we ask the other person?
Good question. Very good question. This is the pivotal issue, isn't it? Because you're caught between, or the challenge is, how real can I be? How genuine can I be? How can I find out things that are really important to me, right? At the same time, at least using language, at least using a tone, at least coming with a spirit and developing a conversation where maybe certain personal things would be appropriate, but because you've built a kind of conversational foundation. So maybe it's about timing. Maybe it's about starting from the outside like a target, right? So you're going to ask certain periphery things and certain less essential things, but just to build up an acquaintance and a kind of a correspondence of sort. Some people prefer to go directly through the wali to ask certain questions or to have that person present. That's a good thing. Like when a brother spoke just now, it touched me because he sounds like he's met his soulmate, met the love of his life. And when he was saying about, he had his parents involved. See, the transparency is a good thing. Because even if we feel like we have that ability, say like our young people, they may feel like, I know what time it is. My parents are older than me and they don't know what's good. They don't know what's going on. Yeah. I know what it's about. I know what, they don't really understand. That was in their day. This is our day, right? I know many of the young people might be thinking that way, but I'm telling them as a brother, as an older brother, you will protect yourself in ways that you probably wouldn't really comprehend right now if you keep it transparent and have your parents involved. Do you know what I mean? So that's really essential. As I mentioned, so going through the wali is one good way, a good traditional way. The other thing is if you're speaking to that person, there's some gray areas about whether you speak to them directly on the phone or whether you're messaging them. But I would encourage people to step back from the emoji talk and keep it on the issue. Because what you don't want to do is like get caught in that, the human character is very stimulus response. right? And the way that social media is developed with these things lighting up and flashing and giving bells and that, we kind of become Pavlovian. So am I really looking forward to an emoji with hearts and, like, what am I looking for? Or am I asking specifically to arrive at a particular destination, which is nikah? Does that make, I don't know if that makes, does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's, again, I've got so many questions in my head, and we will obviously touch on that more after the break. But just quickly to recap what you've said, it's obviously about, keeping in with the boundaries of, courtship in the Islamic way, but with that into consideration to involve other people. And you can do that in various ways, like, let somebody know, keep your conversations where, it is actually part of your Islamic boundaries. And I think if we do that, and sometimes when we approach things, taking into consideration our creator first, we will actually find what we're looking for. Again, I just want to remind the callers that, we're going to have a short break right now, but we're going to continue even more deeper into this question. And we will see you shortly after the break. Please stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm here, your relationship expert, and I'm joined by Brother Bilal, and he's our counselor for today. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Bilal. Welcome back. Before the break, we were obviously discussing the importance of behavior during courtship. We had a couple of callers as well, and some amazing insights, as well as, the really enlightening call about how Single Muslim has helped a couple actually get together. And this is, the new age, and a lot of people are finding people for themselves. And SingleMuslim.com is obviously a platform for marriage. But even saying that, they are challenges, and that's why experts and professionals like ourselves are on the show to help individuals out there with any of their challenges and any issues around relationships. As we were talking before about the importance of behavior when you're courting, so this is the beginning of getting to know somebody. How much should you share about yourself? I mean, I know it's an individual thing, but men's mind and women's mind, as you and I have discussed before, are totally different, and obviously expectations are different. And when we are at different stages in our lives as well, there is a difference as to how much one shares and how much one appreciates what we share. So as much as we want someone who's honest and open, what are the things that someone should maybe concentrate on more when they are having these discussions, the kind of language, the kind of questions, whether they're asking themselves or sharing about themselves or asking the other person? So Brother Bilal, what do you think are the important factors? And then we can go deeper as to, what are those questions?
I think, right, people got to be honest with themselves. We're Muslims, right? So obviously religiosity has its role in terms of what people may want to discuss with a person because of compatibility. It depends. Everybody's on different levels, right? So one of the things that people may feel is helpful is to kind of find out where the other person is on their deen, for the reason that maybe not to be judgmental, but to know that, okay, maybe I'm not on that level, but I need to let you know where I'm at and I'm aspiring, for example, or vice versa. That's kind of important conversation. I don't think it just means, when I say religiosity, that it's just talking about, well, I pray and I eat halal.
I was about to say that, yeah. It means a lot more than that.
into the nitty-gritty, the kind of daily workings of how we kind of operate within our sphere of our religious adherence. And what is the person's aspirations? Because oftentimes we can meet a person at a stage in their journey, but they're on the journey going somewhere. So what do they intend? What are some of the steps that they're planning to put in place, or they've put in place to be elevated to the next level, whether that be spiritually, because that's obviously an essential to know where the person's at. But let's be real now. We live in a world of material. We don't live in the sky. We don't live in an etheric world, right? We live in a world of concrete. And so let's discuss finance. Let's have a conversation around finance, at least views and values about money, how budgeting, spending money, profession, where does a person expect to live, what sort of lifestyle if he's a gentleman, the brother's inviting the sister into what type of lifestyle, or where's she at? That's very important. Children, do people have children, or do they want children, or do they want more children? What's the if somebody, one of the parties or both parties have of children already, they've been married already, for example. What's their view of being a step parent? What does that look like? Let's talk about that in detail. I don't think these are like interrogation questions. I think they're more conversation points. I think it's more about how you just introduce the subject matter and have a conversation about it, as opposed to a list of 99 questions. Because I feel like, if truth be told, there's some people that if you ask them very direct questions, that either they may find that intimidating, or they become politicians and give an answer, but is it the real answer and is it the real them? So you don't want people to feel uncomfortable. When you make people feel comfortable and just have a conversation, you tend to find out what you need to find out, more than just being direct, going for the jugular,
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because I always get this, and I get from both sides, whereas men complaining that women are too, high maintenance and expect a lot, and they, men cannot get married, especially when they're young, and they're trying to, build their lives, but, there's a lot of expectation around marriage, regardless of that. And then there's women also now that are up and coming, more educational with regards to their careers and stepping up in the world and matching men, or even going beyond the status of men when it comes to professional sort of like status. So, and they find that men, need to be maybe at the same level, on par or above. But there is a struggle now. So, so what is that? I mean, that's my question, but I have a lot of questions coming in on Facebook and YouTube. I have, Syed Raza, who's mentioned, do young Muslims take care to maintain their relationships with their spouses currently? Oh, that's a very good question. Let me say that again. So, do Muslim, sort of like people take care of their current relationships and try to maintain that? Because of course there is a very much high rate of divorce in our Muslim communities, of course, and there's also the fear that people are in relationships just for convenience. I get a lot of people saying that they're married, but they're happily married. So do we find couples together that are staying together in a successful so-called way? What's your thoughts on that, Brother Bilal?
My reflection is that I would think that not just young Muslims, but Muslims in general. But if we want to target the young people, I mean, in terms of my professional capacity, I work with different people of different ages, Muslims, non-Muslims, but I do work with quite a lot of young Muslim couples or individuals who are married, and some of their issues or challenges that they want to explore is marriage and romance and the like. I get the impression, and this is anecdotal, this isn't based on any scientific research, but my anecdotal evidence is that they take their marriage, their love, very, very seriously. They would let that young Muslims, when they love hard. So, if there's a problem in that area, it can affect people's mental health and well-being across the board.
Absolutely.
But like it swings both ways. When they're in that groove and things are working, people, both men and both women tend to seem to, young men and women, Muslim men and women tend to seem to be excelling in other spheres of their life. So it's really quite difficult. It's really quite foundational, the link between mental health, that we don't necessarily make that common association, but our levels of anxiety, our levels of depression, our levels of despair, our levels of shame or guilt, if it's related to our marriage, or the opposite, if things are, as I said, if things are going well. So my thing is that people take it serious, and there are a lot of successful, young Muslim couples out there. But I think one of the most important things to remember, if there's any takeaway message that I would leave people with from our conversation, and it was to fit on the back of a matchbox, is the word will be motivation. I think motivation is everything. As long as motivation is alive, both parties are motivated to make it work, then there's going to be countless challenges, difficulties that they may encounter, whether it's becoming homeless, financial issues, conflict with family interfering and, causing difficulties. But as long as the people, two individuals are committed and motivated, then there's always making dua and then doing the necessary actions. There's always a way to be successful. Always, always.
So what you're saying, it is constant work and you've got to work at it because there's going to be challenges from all areas, like you just mentioned. And again, I would advise, people that are feeling that sort of sense that, maybe their marriage just, has died in that spark, or, they want to, revive that spark. Do seek some sort of outside assistance, because it does make a difference. And the longer you leave it, and the early intervention will actually help. And we, Brother Bilal and I obviously champion that, the earlier you feel that uncomfortableness and the way that you feel that you're just tolerating and just putting up in life, especially with your partner. And it's not just an anecdote. I do a lot of research as well, and it does, connect happiness to successful relationships, especially in your marriage. And when you are successful in your relationship, it does filter in other areas of your life. So it is important to not neglect that. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to have, some sort of like, talking therapy, or some sort of like coaching, or, counseling, and to seek that advice. The sooner the better, because you're more likely to want to work at it, because you actually identify the issues, you're both willing, and you sort of have maybe less resentment, and you haven't let it sort of like lie for too long. Again, thank you so much for all the comments and all the interactions that we're getting on all these different platforms, on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you so much for all your support. I really, really appreciate all the viewers internationally. Coming from, Abu Dhabi and Asia, it's amazing, wow. For all of you. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Again, if you do want to call in with a question to direct some of the questions here, so that we can actually have a conversation around, your sort of challenge, please do so. And the number is at the bottom of your screen, but just as a reminder, it's 01924 231 083. We are here obviously discussing importance of behavior during courtship. And, we're here sponsored by SingleMuslim.com, which is a serious app for Muslims to get together in the hope of, something really serious, of course, marriage. So this is why it's really important that you do listen, take part, because it's obviously going to help you in your journey to fulfill that outcome. So as we were talking before, Brother Bilal, what are the sort of language, we talk about communication. A lot of us say, it's important to have communication. But I think that we lack the skills of communication. And communication is not just verbal. It's not just having conversations. It's like, what is the conversation? What are the questions? What are the actual verbal, non-verbal sort of like, language skills that we need to sort of maybe try and build ourselves up to a certain level, so that we can actually understand ourselves first, and also read the other person, because we can read other people.
Yeah, all right. And one of the languages, you mentioned the word language, and I was thinking about the love languages. This theory, this idea that individuals, they communicate in a non-spoken way, as you mentioned. I think the majority of our interactions, in terms of our communication as human beings, 80-odd%, 90-odd%. The research differs, but it's the vast majority of our communication is in the unspoken, right? And there is an idea about that was developed by a relationship counselor called the love languages, and it says that essentially that people communicate, or they receive communication in particular ways that is specifically, it hits the nail on the head, or it really resonates with them. Mm-hmm. So, for example, there's one of the languages is the language of touch, for example. So some people in relationships, in marriages, that touch is the most important thing in terms of a hug, in terms of holding hands, just in terms of that physical connection. That is the most important thing. Other people, it's words of affirmation. It's that I love you. It's that I believe in you. It's all those encouraging words and all those things that is so important to them. Then you also have acts of service. Those things where it's not necessarily that partner, that spouse's duty, but they do nice things for other person as an act of service, showing that I've been thinking about you, and I did this because I know this is the kind of thing that you would appreciate. So there is that aspect as well. Then there is also quality time. Quality time is an essential thing. Quality over quantity. Just being around each other can sometimes drive people a little insane. Yeah, so it's the quality of the interaction, not necessarily the quantity of it. And then there's an old-fashioned lady's best friend. I might be accused of being a bit sexist, but I'm saying it in jibe in terms of receiving gifts. There are some spouses or some individuals that it doesn't have to be expensive, but I think it's essentially always related to you were thoughtful, you were caring. Sometimes it was receiving gifts. So one of the really important things that is quite pushed in the modern era, and this is not necessarily like a secular idea or Islamic idea, it's just an idea of human interaction, communication, is to do the love language test, because there is a free online test, and find out your significant other, or the one that you intended to be your significant other. Maybe find out their love language, or at least maybe if you're not familiar with it, familiarize yourself with the idea of it, of what it's about, and maybe have a conversation about that, because sometimes there's a breakdown in communication in marriages, because both are communicating, both are committed, both are working hard, but they're not speaking in the same language, or they don't understand their partner, they don't understand their spouse's love language. So they're making a whole load of effort, but it's not a good investment, if I can put it. It's not a good return, because invest in something that that person doesn't receive with that magnitude of appreciation. But when you know what your spouse's love language is and you speak to them in that language, then you're on point.
That's very valuable advice. We have mentioned that before briefly, but you've gone into it in really great depth, which is really important. Yes, how we receive and how we like to give love does differ, and it does change maybe even over time, and you can research that. The other thing is, I was talking about nonverbal communication. Even with the love languages, there's other things that we have to sort of analyze. I know I'm trying to probably ask people to be sort of like psychologists themselves, or, human behavior sort of like therapists, but actually, you know what, it's really important information, and you don't have to study this. I do the research, we do the studies and the training, and we're just giving you the highlighted information here for you to take away. So, even when you are meeting somebody, there's all this non-verbal communication, like, the eye gaze. When you're talking to somebody, someone's dilated pupils gives a sense of the attractiveness and the dominance, the gestures, the social, cultural, obviously contact. And obviously with us, we do have our certain boundaries. But, people that use their hands a lot to talk, for example, it does say something about them. People that look away, people look to the left, people look, having different sort of ways of communicating in those ways, non-verbally. That's what another thing that you need to worry about is, mainly take into consideration, and not necessarily worry about, but be aware of. Even if you look back at your WhatsApp messages and you think about how you're actually speaking and what language are you speaking. Is it sort of like more auditory? Is it more a description, expressing in which way? And that shows if that person, someone who is, it comes kind of links into love languages, is someone who is, doesn't want that eye contact all the time, or they don't want that, that closeness, maybe if you're standing next to them, if they don't want someone to, sort of, speak out their feelings. So you have to be, aware of how people are describing things. And are they describing it more with, either feelings, or is it like an imagination, or is it future-based? Is it present? I think all of these things really matter, because then you know what the other person, what makes them tick, what makes you tick, and also to understand them so that you will actually know how to converse better. Because sometimes we can misread one another. If someone, say, for example, is looking away, it's not necessarily because they're not interested. They're just probably not that confident to actually get information in that particular way that you are actually giving it. So if you were to read their body language, you would actually understand how to actually engage with somebody in language. And I think that was so interesting from what I've said and research. Again, there are so much, more Facebook comments out there. Thank you so much from all over, all the platforms. So, inshallah, we will, hopefully read out some of your comments that's out there. We have a comment from Baba Hussein, and he says that people need to love and care for humanity and smile and live your life easily. And that applies to youngsters as well as older people. And the thing is, best wishes to everyone. Thank you so much for that comment. I really appreciate that. That's true, because we are worried a lot about finding that spouse, finding that partner. And if we don't, it kind of holds us back in other areas in life. And what do you think, Brother Bilal, when it comes to us, not finding that partner in the time frame that we have set. And again, it takes, a time where certain individuals become slightly depressed, slightly given up hope, or, it holds them back in other areas in their life. And to be honest, even if you're finding somebody and if you meet them, randomly, they don't really want to meet somebody who is feeling that way. So you have to always make sure that you've got other things in your life in order to keep you sort of inviting. What's your thoughts on that?
I get what you're saying, in the sense where like, people basically want to be showing their best side, right? And
Yes.
they don't want to be like they don't want to be in a state of despair. I mean,
Especially at the beginning.
Ultimately, it's qadr, right? In terms of what is decreed. But I think that we can make these things exciting. We can make finding a spouse, for example, you're challenging yourself. It's an opportunity to learn so much about yourself. It's like you mentioned about the social skills, about interacting with different people, understanding body language, mannerisms, speech, how you present yourself. You're being your authentic self. You're being your best version of your authentic self. And maybe understanding that, as you said, when people have met in person, they may have had an introduction or use the medium to get an introduction. But when they meet in person for the first few times, it may be quite challenging. It's going to be, we have to be a bit compassionate with ourselves, right? To accept that it might be quite nerve-wracking because of the kind of expectations what we have, our own human insecurities, our own human frailty. So let's just be easy on ourselves and just try and enjoy and open up to the experience and learn something about yourself, and as well as learning something about the person that you're having a dialogue with. But definitely, I would say avoid despair as much as you can and be hopeful, because Allah's got you. But you just may be part of your test. It may be, it may be longer compared to somebody else and shorter compared to the next person. But we have to kind of stick in our own journey. Do you know sometimes we get distracted as human beings by focusing on other people's successes?
Very true.
And because we live in this era of everything is played out on social media, not actually reality. It is just a picture or it's a short video, and it's not reality, right? It's just a window or a snapshot of reality. So, like I know that sometimes people, oh my God, and she just got married, and they just got married, and they just had a baby, and it's their life is great, and they're in Dubai, and and that's all good and well. But folks, stay in your lane, focus on you, be the best version of what you can do, develop yourself. That right person will come along, inshallah. That's how I see the situation.
That's a very important point. Very, very important is the fact that we are comparing constantly and we are bombarded by snapshots, and it is a snapshot, even sometimes of a second. And we know for a fact that even those snapshots, the same people that may come to us for, their own personal challenge. So don't make assumptions and don't compare. Be happy for the other person and bless them, and just pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, to help them and to also give you the same as that. And that's what's going to give you. But don't be disheartened by seeing the positivity around them, because people see, like you mentioned on, social media, that things are happening for others and it may not be happening for them. And again, it deters your own sort of happiness because you're focusing elsewhere. Continuously focus on yourself, work on yourself. And even if you're looking for a partner, don't just make it your only goal, because when you are faced with that, you want to have something so much more to talk about, so much more to give, and that's not going to come from you saying, well, for the last 5-6 years or 5-6 months, all I've been doing is only this, is looking for the other person. You want to have something more to talk about, and you want to be inspiring.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look. It's not your best look. It's not your best look. Yeah.
Exactly. And don't be sad. Don't be down. Like you said, Brother Bilal, it's so important that trust that we have to have in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the kisma, we all have our journey. We all have our time, and keep striving, but keep working on yourself. Like I said, read up on a little bit of body language, so we don't make these assumptions when you meet somebody. People always say, well, maybe I met them and I always get the same responses, because maybe you're putting something out there that's triggering those same responses, or you're making the same assumptions by not understanding other people's behavior and language, and we're just not connecting. People think that we don't connect with other people. We connect on so many levels. It doesn't mean you have to always have that same smile or interaction or the same sort of because our ego takes over, what we want for us, what we want for me. It's more about more understanding, more compassion. So yeah, I think we've raised so many issues already. And again, we do have a few more minutes left. If anybody still wants to call in with some quick questions to be answered, you can do on 01924231083. So Brother Bilal, I'd love to give you this opportunity to sort of like, give a few takeaways on the importance of behavior during courtship, even if it's just to summarize or anything new that you feel that, our viewers can sort of like, benefit from.
Yeah, I guess in summary, I would say definitely look into the love languages if you have the time or you have the interest to just find out what it is. It's just a social skill, and developing our social skills will always help us in our professional life, in our academic, in our social life in general. But definitely it will be a benefit if we're searching for a spouse, because it will help us to, understand people and to present our best self. I would say also the idea of attachment. There's an idea in psychology which is quite deep, surface level. The idea of attachment theory, right, is something important to be aware of. The 4 types of attachment is basically saying the way that people were brought up in terms of the relationship they had with their significant caregivers. Maybe their biological parents, may not be, but how they were nurtured, it might tell you what type of personality they or how they may respond in conflict situations, how they have types of communications, what type of relationships they build. It's not predestined, and it's like, because we find out about a person's background and experiences. They may have come from tough or negative or challenging background. It's not predetermined they're going to be that type of person, but it gives you an understanding of who you're sitting with, who you're talking with, what possibly could be some of the challenges or how to operate and deal with that person. So I definitely would have to throw attachment theory in there and find out about a person's background. If you're, as they say, courting, it's like when you're in court, you're looking for evidence in court, right? So
absolutely. And it's so true what you've said, actually, even towards the end. It's so important when we're looking for evidence and we're looking to research somebody, we're looking at families, but actually we need to understand, what does that actually mean? It's not about the family background, what their profession, their status, but how were they brought up? And that's what indicates a lot about that person. So absolutely, so much takeaways. And I just again want to thank you so much for your time, Brother Bilal. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've already myself have taken away so much information, and I'm constantly learning and developing, and you've definitely opened up my eyesight today, and I'm sure you've done the same to all our viewers out there. Thank you so much for everyone who's been watching all over the world and on different various platforms, whether it's Facebook, Sky, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. It's been an absolute pleasure to see all your comments and all the comments and all of the calls as well. I appreciate your time to call in and speak on the show. Really, really value that. And again, I want to thank you, Brother Bilal, for your time. And inshallah, we will be back with another episode next week. And if you would to please, support SingleMuslim.com, which you can do, and actually, dial in and join for free today. And we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.